So just a couple of reminders about solving quadratics, and I'm going to say that this is equal to 0. So we're going to solve both of these equations, and a couple things to notice: it's quadratic, it has an x squared in it, and as a quadratic, I have a couple of tools at hand to do. I could complete the square, which I'm not going to do today. I'm going to either try and factor, or I'm going to try and use the quadratic formula. So let me start with this equation over here on the left. And if I look at this trying to factor it, I want things that multiply to 6 that add to 5, 3 and 2. So I can factor this into x plus 3 times x plus 2. So remember, if I multiply this out, you can notice how I would get a 6. 3 times 2 is 6, and then that middle term would be 3x plus 2x, which is 5x. So this factors to this. And then notice what I see right here are some zeros. We've been building those up from the zeros in the last unit. So let's see, I want to think about things I plug in that would make a 0. If I plug in a negative 3, that would make a 0, and if I plug in a negative 2, that would be a 0. So that quadratic right there is solved. And notice if I plug in negative 3, 0 times something is 0, plug in negative 2, 0 times something else is also 0. So this one on the right, try and solve it. Things that multiply to negative 9 add to 3, I'm not going to find them. Well, I'm not going to be able to find them easily. So they're not rational. So what I'm going to use is a tool that we haven't seen for a while, quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is, let me change my color real quick, is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that whole thing is over 2 times a. And the ABC come from the original quadratic, where this leading, the coefficient with the x squared is a, that's a 1. There's my b, and that's a 3, and then my c is a negative 9. So all that I'm going to do is plug those values in. So b is 3, so negative 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 3 squared minus 4 times a times c, c is negative 9. That whole thing is over 2 times a is 1. And I just have some arithmetic to do. So negative 3 plus or minus the square root of, let's see, 3 squared is 9. A is 1, I should have put a 1 here. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 9, that's positive 36. That's over 2 times 1, which is 2. I'll keep going from here. Negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 36, that is 45 over 2. And I'm pretty good from here. This 45, I could split that up. 45 is 9 times 5, and those are both being square rooted still. So square root of 9 is 3, so I'm going to rewrite this as negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 5 is square root of 5. I'm not going to go any further with that, and that whole thing is divided by 2. So there are my values that x would be to make this equation true. And notice those are just numbers. Those are where some real zeros happen there. They're just not nice, neat little fractions. They're just these decimal expansions that go on forever. I could estimate where they are. I could actually figure out exactly where they are as well. So there we go, 2 ways to solve quadratics.